Hey guys, it's Ozzy. Today I thought I'd make a video more targeted towards the people who have subscribed to my channel who are also learning Japanese through like MIA or like AJATT or some input like immersion based method. And today I thought I'd make a video like about the different kinds of immersion and like the benefits of each one, because one thing I've noticed throughout my years of learning Japanese and seeing other people also learn Japanese through immersion is that depending on what they used for input and like immersion, it greatly changed like how their Japanese sounded when they went to input. So one thing I noticed is that people who input mainly through, well, like, 90% through just anime or manga or like mediums like that, they end up sounding like, I don't know, you just end up sounding like an anime character. I really think it does actually matter what you immerse in. It's not just about do you immerse or do you not immerse in Japanese content or any language. It's about what do you actually use for immersion. So I've seen people who have learned Japanese the exact same way I have, using just immersing in whatever they're interested in, but it just so happens to be anime, and they end up just sounding like ridiculous. They just sound like they're in an anime, like, and I think, why have they ended up like sounding like a weirdo, but some other people I've seen have ended up sounding like almost perfect? And I think that comes down to the fact that they used anime mainly for their immersion. Like, if I contrast that to the way that I learned it, is that I did 0% pretty much from anime. I used to watch anime a bit when I was like 12, 13, like when I was younger, but when I was learning Japanese, that was all in English subtitles. But for Japanese immersion, while I'm learning Japanese, all I immersed in, like I said in my other video, was 99% Japanese YouTubers and just podcasts, like just random podcasts about whatever. And I think that made like a huge difference, because like, the YouTubers that I was watching were just people, around my age, maybe a little bit older. So, and they just, they're not like professionals like Geonozin or like, famous people in Japan who've like gone and like learned how to speak in a certain way that works well for television. They just speak how they speak, and like they speak like an average person my age, and in their 20s or like late teens or whatever. And watching that, I think, as the main source of immersion has allowed me to develop, not even a main source really, like as my only source of immersion really, other than podcasts, I think has allowed me to develop a way of speaking that's like feels more natural for someone my age. Like, it just feels like, it probably seems more just like someone who was brought up or like spent a lot of time in Japanese schools or whatever growing up. And yeah, I really think it makes a huge difference depending on what you immerse in. Another thing I've seen actually like quite often is you see people who, they don't know Japanese and they're just beginning to learn it, and then they end up getting like a Japanese girlfriend, or it could be the other way around, like a girl gets a Japanese boyfriend. But the main thing I've seen is guys get a Japanese girlfriend, and then their main source of input in Japanese is from their girlfriend. And what I've noticed is when people do that, they end up sounding just like, really, really feminine. Like, it's fine if they sounded that way in English as well, like in their native language, if that's how they sound, that makes sense, it goes across the two languages. But you see people that like sound just like an average guy in English, and then they learn Japanese and they sound like really, really feminine in the way they speak. It just, it just comes across kind of, strange how much it changes between the two things. So I think, what you immerse in does make a huge impact on not necessarily the quality of your output, but like the way in which your output sounds and the way it like portrays you as a person. So, if you like learn it all through anime and manga and all that, and then you go to speak, you're gonna sound like an anime character, is what I've noticed. Like, I've noticed people that have been doing AJATT or whatever years longer than me, and then I look at them speak or like them write, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing? It's like they just sound like weird as, because they've learned it mainly through that. And so I think that's the main difference between people who, use most of their immersion through anime or something else. Like, it'd be fine if you got like really, you learn to understand through anime, but then you watched other things as well and you understood the difference between the two. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with learning Japanese from anime. I mean, it's fine, but I think you need, when you go to speak, you need other sources of immersion then to balance that out and figure out what you're meant to actually sound like as an average person in Japanese. Because I think that's, you know, what's separating a lot of people from getting to the level that they want to be in Japanese. They still got that kind of weirdness in their Japanese where they just feel a bit off. And I think that's not necessarily because of, bad language ability or a bad way of, just bad grammar or anything. I think it's just because they're immersing through, a source that probably isn't best suited towards outputting in the way that they want to be heard, if that makes sense. So, like I discussed in my 3 years of AJATT/MIA video, I watched like a bunch of YouTubers like Devazenshikyu, Mahoto, and like a few others. Like recently I've been watching Hikaru, and they're all, bar Hikaru, they're all pretty, they're all young, roughly my age. And so I've ended up speaking really similar to them. In my videos, I don't know if it comes across as much, but like if I talk to someone on the phone or whatever, and I'm talking like with just on the phone, I end up sounding, because you watched a heap of like Devazenshikyu, and they're a group of young guys. Since I watched a heap of their videos, and not just their videos, but they do like live, like line live videos and all that. Like they do live streams and all that. So I've watched a lot of that, and I think that played a huge role in me being able to not only develop like a good understanding of the language and good, being able to use grammatic, just like have good grammar in it as well. But I think that also contributed to me being able to flow, like my speech to be able to flow and, give the impression that I am more Japanese, if that makes sense. Like, I don't mean to like make this video to say, look how fucking sick I am. It's more like, just saying that I think a lot of people could get a lot of benefits if they switched up their immersion from purely one's like anime or like fictitious sources and put it to like YouTube or something that's more, I guess you could say, off the cuff. Like there's no script, they just go. A lot of them, not all of them, but like a lot of them, they're not that professional. They'll just go and they just speak, and I think that helps a lot. With not only does it like help you be able to speak more naturally, I think it allows you to not only speak good but put more humor into your speech, if that makes sense. Like it teaches you how to kind of joke around with your speech, and like it gives you that kind of like the same, I'm trying to think of like how to say it in English, but there's like the same sort of like vibes as a Japanese person. Like when they speak to you, like you kind of understand their way of joking around and their way of like taking the piss a bit with your friends, if that makes sense. So I think a lot of people could get a lot of a huge benefit from switching up their immersion into a more natural kind of source rather than anime or TV or movies or whatever. And that's mainly what I wanted to talk about here. And also I thought, because I think I've got a lot of new people to my channel, and I haven't really properly like talked about it yet on my YouTube channel, but I've got a Patreon that I just started using properly. Like I made it about 9 months ago, I think. And just recently I got like 2 or 3 new patrons just pop on. So I thought, like, I just started making a lot more content for that, and I thought I'd introduce it here and explain a bit what I'm going to be doing on that. So the main idea behind it is that I learned Japanese mainly using, I watched Matt vs. Japan and looked at, learned a lot of, the majority of the things I knew initially were from his videos. And I think a lot of people who watch these probably are the same in that respect. But, going through and doing that and learning Japanese all myself, and now branching out and doing other languages, like I've been doing Slovak and Korean a little bit. I did ancient Greek for a while just because why not? And through doing that, I feel like I've made a lot, found a lot of insights myself into the whole language learning process, and like, not necessarily some like tips and tricks, but just like different methods to get to a high level of language ability. I feel like I've found out some other ways like that, and I'm going to use my Patreon as my main platform to kind of introduce those topics and discuss them. Or even if there's anything you want to see on my YouTube channel, like some things discussing like output, input, or like anything to do with learning Japanese or any other language, just leave it in the comments, and I'll make a video on that, because I would like to make some more videos in English, just kind of discussing this whole language learning process, because it is a big interest of mine, not only with the MMA not only do just the MMA content, but I like to put out some stuff like this as well in the future, more stuff like this. So just let me know in the comments what you'd like to see, and yeah, I'll be sure to get back to you and make a new video on it in the future. Alright, thanks guys.